Today, I'm going to be building a cutting board out of this pile of offcuts. So if you stick around, I'll show you exactly how I did it, as well as some tips and tricks along the way. So the first step's pretty simple. You just got to make a plan and figure out where you want to lay out your colors in your cutting board. So the next step we got to do is go to the table saw and cut thin strips of the purple heart and cut the Paduk in half. One quick tip at the table saw is you're going to want the teeth of the blade to be just barely above the workpiece. By setting your saw blade at the correct height, you give the blade a chance to make the cleanest cut possible. So now that we have all the pieces cut, we can lay it out and see what it's going to look like. The next step is to start gluing these up, but first I got a quick tip on how to save your clamps from glue squeeze out. So it doesn't matter if you're using these parallel clamps or these F-style clamps, go get yourself a roll of painter's tape, roll out a piece that is pretty close to the length of the workpiece that you're working on, and apply the clamps to the bar. That way, when the glue does squeeze out, you're not getting it on your clamp bar and you won't have to clean it up afterwards. It's just on the tape and you peel it off and you're good to go. So if you're going to be making a cutting board, what you're going to want to use is Titebond 3. It is waterproof and food safe. So this is perfect for a cutting board scenario and it can hold up to all the rigors that this board's going to be put through. I got another quick tip for you, and that is on how to maximize the use of your clamps. And if you're like me, you never have enough clamps. Especially if you're doing a lot of these glue ups for cutting boards. If you got 5 or 6 of them, but only have a few clamps, well, go pick up some kitchen timers from Amazon. That way you can easily set a timer and know exactly when you can pull your clamps off and glue up the next one. So the next step is to take these out of clamps, scrape off the glue, and start to get it flattened out. Now you could either use a planer like I'm going to be using, or you could easily use a belt sander as well. So now that we got the cutting board flattened, we can go ahead and square up the ends. So you could either use the table saw or a miter saw to square up the edges. It really doesn't matter. It's up to you. So now that it's all squared up, we can go ahead and do some edge treatment. And for this cutting board, I'm just going to do a simple round over. You can choose to do a chamfer or just break it over with some sandpaper. It's up to you. It's your preference on how you want to do it. Alright, so another tip for you when you go to sand your cutting board. Now this was a big mistake that I always made when I started woodworking, is I just skipped to 180 or 220 and just took longer to sand, thinking that would work right. Well, it really doesn't. And each layer of grit or each sequence of grit that you use is designed to remove the scratches from the previous one. Start with 150, 180, 220, and work your way up. It'll definitely save you a lot of time and it'll give you a nice clean finish. What we're going to do is add some of these rubber feet to the bottom. These are great just in case your board isn't perfectly flat. If you have these rubber feet on the bottom, nobody will notice that it isn't flat and it'll stay still on whatever surface you're working on. So we're going to go ahead and pre-drill and screw those on. So another quick tip to know how far to drill, you just add a little piece of painter's tape to the depth and it acts kind of like a flag to know when to stop. So now it's time to finish up this cutting board, and I'm going to be using just mineral oil enriched with vitamin E. It's just a cutting board oil that I picked up at Lowe's. It seemed to do pretty good. You just have to reapply every so often. So that wraps it up. I think it turned out really great. I hope you learned something. If you did, please hit that thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next one.